everybody, and welcome to another episode of HR Breakfast USA. Welcome back, Toby. Did you have a nice break? I mean, I'm trying to uplift.
So the context is Toby just complained about how terrible the evening was for very specific reasons. Right before this.
As a fellow Brit, I feel the same, but I am trying to be. Come on now.
I think it's the hangover that's really compounding the fact that I'm in a bad mood as well. But also, both our children were ill all last week, so didn't go to nursery. They stayed at home. I was supposed to be at home without children to, benefit from that. Our oven broke. These things come in threes, right? So, children ill all week. Oven broke. England threw it away. So there we go. We'll start. It's Monday. It's a new week. We're positive. We're going into it with positive vibes. We've got a cup of tea because, as some said, British. So let's go get the week. What are we talking about?
Should we say hello to Callie first, maybe, Toby?
Sorry, yeah.
I wouldn't have realized that hadn't specifically happened when I just put it in. I think everyone knows exactly where all three of us are at right now. But thank you, Sam. I appreciate that.
And he drowned in a cup of tea. There you go. Yeah. 4, not 3.
She may be the physical barrier between us, but she is also the level mind between us as well.
I think what could go wrong? This is going awfully well so far, and I haven't even said what we're talking about, which is just going to get even better. So today, let's talk about the fact that we all know people are going to leave our organisations. Get over it, get used to it, and let's stop fighting it and working with it. And I remember years ago leaving an organisation where I was the main sales development individual, and the boss was really angry with the fact I'd left. And I quote, "I really thought you'd be here till you retired."
How old were you?
I mean, must be 26, 27 years ago. My point to all of this was we were great friends, young, vibing company. But that whole mentality is, as we know, outdated. And it's about how we can help those who need to embrace the modern vibe a little bit more, right? Mm-hmm. How do we help them just get over the carriage clock? No one wants the freaking carriage clock anymore.
Where did that even come from? Like, why is that a thing? Why you've been here for a long time. Here's a clock. You're now retiring? Good luck, because this clock is counting down to death now. So have a good time. Why a clock?
Well, apparently, just as a side note, according to Stephen Bartlett, Darium CEO, I've got 8,000 hours of which to live.
And you're doing this? That's the first thing I'd have gone. Hey, you know what? I'm not doing these live streams with Callie and Toby. I've only got 8,000 hours to live. I'm not doing one of a week doing this, just watching Toby nearly drown in a cup of tea and be miserable. What's the question?
Intentionally choose this.
Well, there we go.
Yes,
At least I'm entertaining someone.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So I can see we're doing awfully well at staying on topic so far this week. So come on now, let's get back to, and I went off on that one, but I felt it was an important thing to note, just living for the moment, because I've only got 8,000 left. Anyway, so
anyone who was watching is immediately gone.
It's just gone. It's just gone. Yeah. So when we look at where we can help some of these business owners and leadership kind of, and I'm not saying get over the human, but recognize the fact that let's be open about it from the get-go and appreciate that these people, people in our teams are going to leave. They might only want to stay 6 months. They might just want to go on a contract. How do we help them to adapt to where we're going and where we're at now?
I think the people who are Thank you. The people who are most successful with this are the ones who level set right from the beginning. I know that you'll work with me for some amount of time. I hope that it's a great relationship for both of us. How do I help you get to where you're going through this? And then and vice versa, right? Like it's all about trading time and for resources on both ends. And if we think about it in that sort of way, we open up the conversation to be more fluid and transparent about what we each need when and how to create that balance, which, funny enough, leads to longer tenure with our employees.
And actually, the other thing that's just sprung to mind as you're talking, Callie, is the opportunity for perhaps those who are joining our teams, if you've got an opportunity to upskill your leadership team, which is, this is okay, this is my norm, and look at the value, the additional value you're going to get out of me by having this open conversation way sooner.
Absolutely.
Because it's those ones that I think you'd be great to talk about today. You know, those ones that know that they should, dangerous word should, right? Sometimes they should be embracing this in terms of the fact that their people are going to leave and they might not stay till they get the carriage clock. But how do we help them regulate that emotion? Toby, what are you finding when because I know you're out there a lot right now talking to people. What are the conversations you're having and what does that regulation look like?
It's generally just it's generally the last thing someone thinks about, because it's like, well, once they've gone, they've gone. So what? And I think it's probably it's driven by data, and I think it's in one instance the wrong data, and in the second instance a complete obliviousness, if that is a word, to some data that's available. So the first one is the data that everyone knows, attrition and tenure. Like, people measure that, and that has been one of the key metrics for HR for decades. But actually, it's kind of pointless measuring that, because people will leave at the title of this episode, right? People will leave your company. So it's like, what if you're going to use that as one of your key metrics? What are you hoping to achieve as a result of keeping someone longer? Because it might be something like, oh, we want to reduce costs of recruitment, let's say, because we do internal promotions, no one leaves, so we're reducing that cost. And it's like, there's probably a more efficient way to reduce that cost, but because you're looking at this sole KPI, or whatever you want, or OKR, or whatever terminology you want to use, bit of data, like, it drives the wrong behavior. So that's point one, but that's with the data that is available. The second point is like the unobservable data that no one really captures or looks at is, what do people do once they've left your company? What are they doing? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they saying? Because as with a customer, once they have stopped engaging with your company, or even whilst they're still engaged with your company, they could be the biggest detractor or promoter of your business. So if you have people leaving your company, which you will, and you've treated them rubbish, and generally it only takes that rubbish moment to happen in the last 3 months, 3 weeks, they become detractors for your brand. Congratulations, because of employee experience, you've just thrown out there loads of people who are going to talk smack about your organization. On the contrary, you treat them really well and don't give them a really bad experience for the last 3 weeks, 3 months, whatever, they're going to talk positively about your organization. That's really impactful. That's really powerful. But no organization we've worked with does that. That's what we do. That's why it's the thing we came up with. But so being able to measure that is one thing. And then for it to drive an action and a behavior and a cultural change in how the organization operates, to just say it probably isn't enough, because the HR teams I've been in tend to just say stuff rather than do stuff. It's like, oh, we're a people team now, not a HR team. Cool. What does that mean? Oh, we're more people centric. Great. But what does that mean? oh, well, we just changed the name above the door and on our email signatures. Like, okay, but so the saying things doesn't change the cultural behavior of an organization. Data and analysis tends to. But to my second point, if it's not observable and you're not capturing it, then it's never going to change the behavior. So you then go to my first point, which is like, it's attrition. Always goes back to attrition, and it just drives the wrong behavior. I'll finish this monologue by saying every onboarding project I've ever worked on goes, we're going to design an onboarding program that reduces attrition, increases average tenure. I'm like, you are high as a kite if you think this one thing, this one day, is going to have a substantial impact on that. It will have an impact, don't get me wrong, but is it the one thing that's going to impact that? But also, why are you trying to impact that? You're looking at the wrong data. And I think it's we just look at, as an industry, we look at it because it's like one of the easiest things to measure and to try and demonstrate back to a board.
Yeah, and Toby, to your point, taking that to the next level, once you have got an engaged person, team member who, whether they've left or not, in fact, even when they've left, how do you then reward their praise and their ambassadorship of your organization to others? I think that's also huge, because that relationship doesn't end. And, we've talked about how important alumni are and how we need to reshape and reform alumni so that they become communities. They become places that people want to hang out to. Hey, I wasn't there when you were there, but kind of like your vibe, seeing what you're doing. Let's grab a coffee. We might be able to do something together. At the same time, giving that ex-organization the opportunity to say, look, we've got a piece of, a big project coming up. Does anyone want to come and do it? Who's available? Giving that community the opportunity to either pitch for it or, be connected directly. But there's twofold, isn't there? There's that acknowledgement and gratitude to show for that ex-employee in terms of thank you so much for that recommendation, or thank you for doing that, to keep that connected as well as the alumni piece. Obviously, if you've got the opposite, it ain't going to happen, right? It's kind of must do better next time. When we are at what point, when we've got these more, I don't mean closed-minded, but there's the only thing that comes to mind for this kind of population of leaders that we're talking about. At what point do they need that support to acknowledge and correct not just their behavior, but I'm talking about their actions. Behavior and actions, as we know, are different in terms of, okay, we've now got 6 to 7 months before this person's looking to leave. How do we help that leader real time, right at that point, to do better as a leader, whilst recognizing that some of them might just be their own issues?
Define and reinforce the right behaviors at that moment in time. Really, so the measurement, I'll go back to the measurement stuff. In most organizations, data analysis and reporting drives the behavior. Right from when I was in retail, completely, regardless of how much training and how much internal comms went to stores, they always sold certain things completely incorrectly and sometimes illegally because they needed to hit the number. So at a very basic level, change the way they're being evaluated and measured. That's maybe oversimplifying it because the current measures of a leader aren't that good anyway. So you've got to redefine that whole system. And again, that's what we do at Freeformers. The thing that you want to change, so regardless of how you get the behavior to change, the behavior is a customer success behavior, really.
Yeah.
How do you help that individual become the very best person they can be in the world of work? Not at your company, just in life in general. That's your job as a leader. Yeah. And if it's with the company, great. If it's without the company, also great. You've got to help them get that is your job as a leader, is to help those persons on these transient journeys through roles, through companies, to get to where they want to be. and appreciate that might not be with you. As soon as you try and do anything other than that, I'm going to give you, I can't remember if I've told this story before. When I was trying to leave my first corporate company I worked for, I went into a meeting with my leader to tell her that I'm going to leave. She had a sense that that's what the conversation was going to be. And her boss told her, convince him to stay. And she talked to me for about 20 minutes. She listened to me is what she did. So she listened to me. And after about 20 minutes, she went, well, person X has told me that I've got to try and, make you stay and offer you this and that and all this kind of stuff. But probably not really the right thing to do. And I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, but you should leave. It's the right thing. It's the right time for you. And I'm forever grateful that Mel had that conversation at that time.
Yeah.
But the system she operated in was actively dissuading her from doing that, which I would argue she did the right thing. She did the right thing as a human, as a person, as a leader. But the systems and process of an organization and even the hierarchy are, at ends with that mission.
And there's something that you said in there that really resonates with me, because it's also happened to me and Callie. I'm pretty sure it would have happened to you in your career as well, which is, as an employee and someone that wants more and wants better, you found the opportunity elsewhere. You go to hand in your notice and they say, if only you come to me before you've done that, I can offer you a pay rise. And it's kind of like, why does it take me to hand my notice in for you to offer me a pay rise? And, and I did actually say at the time, help me to understand how that's going to help me to stay now. Because now I know that you had that money and that you were prepared to pay me, but you wouldn't. Callie.
It's just such a slap in the face, right? Like that's my opinion of any of that. Like, oh, you got scared I'm about to leave, so you threw money at me. Maybe it worked temporarily, but it doesn't make me feel good about the situation. And where does that leave us?
Exactly. Toby, I see exactly right. Toby, what do you to add to that?
Well, the problem is that it's aligned to moments as an employee rather than a person. Another story. It's something. Damn right,
it's totally insulting to me.
But I, when the fight closed mindset. Hello, Amy. Thank you for that. When the economy started going to pot.
Nearly, Toby.
nearly swore. I don't know. We have a 18 rating at the top or something for future. If I'm on, yeah. But when it started going to pot, what happened was I was very open and honest with my leader. I said, look, my mortgage payments have just gone up by like 400 quid a month. That's an insane amount, just like that. At that moment, you'd be considering, okay, what can we do? Not expecting a pay rise of £400 a month. Be nice to cover that, but it's not the employer's responsibility necessarily to cover that increase. But it almost kind of is, because the cost of living has gone up, so therefore the salary should go up. And one of the things we baked into like our charter at Freeformers is like cost of living. Everyone will get a rise every year in line with inflation. That is just the very basic thing you should be doing as a human being to track that. So to not have a pay rise for 3 years in this instance, I was down about like 15, 20 grand pounds sterling in this instance. So it's like, because this conversation is too aligned with work and not aligned with any external factors, it always comes too late. Because when do you get a pay rise at a job? Oh, when you get promoted. Cool. But loads of things happen in my life in between that, and impacted by me and not impacted by me. So as a leader, to disregard all of these external factors in that conversation, what was the word you used? It's insulting. It's insulting because you are treating me like a number. You're treating me like resource. You're not treating me as a person, regardless of how much that person in this instance said, "Want to have an adult conversation? Want to treat you like a person?" Had zero interest in treating me as a person.
But you expect me to act like I own the place and put everything that I have into it.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, absolutely.
The other thing I think, to take into mind, we've all been at smaller organizations where, you can't take the business owner's seat, right? it's their business. So therefore, you are taking on more responsibility and expanding and broadening your skill set and responsibilities, left and right. Okay, because you can't do any more to go up. That's also a point that recognition is required and needed for a leader to be able to say, look, I can see you're taking on more of these elements and responsibilities within the organization. It is there helping. Which element of the business is it helping? What's that helping to facilitate? Probably quite a bit if it's a small team, and therefore that should be recognized and rewarded, and also somehow mentioned on the way out. So, for example, if that current employer is then giving a reference, it should be used to be able to say, team player, I think that's so passive when you hear that in terms of people leaving. Oh, they were great. They're a real team player. Okay, great. Now tell me why. Give me examples of what that meant. What did that one person do? And what impact did that have on the organization to help that person to move on rather than prevent them? So almost kind of building this exit profile for them to help them move on. And to Callie's point earlier, if you do that well, the irony is you probably either keep them longer or they go to a larger organization to get the experience if they can't get it in a smaller one, which again, please, leaders, recognize that. Let them go with good grace so they can come back.
Or not. Like they could just leave and just kind of go, you know what? I had a really great 3 years at that company. It was one of the best companies I've ever worked for. I say that about most companies I've worked with a huge caveat, like, oh, it was really good for this period of time, and then it got really rubbish for this period of time. I delineate between the two, but like I even recommended someone join a company I used to work for. It's like, if you're going to join them, though, only do it for a year, because if you work there any more than a year, you'll lose your mind. but so it's like, that is that a promoter or a detractor? It probably sits somewhere in the middle, because I wasn't saying don't work there. I just was saying don't work there for a very long time. So, but I will never go back and work for any of those companies. Absolutely not. I'd be absolutely insane to do that. But I talk about them. I'm talking about them now, about the good and the bad stuff they did. It's like, and you could have a level of ignorance for that in the past because the internet didn't exist. So it's like, I don't care, out of sight, out of mind. It's not out of sight, out of mind anymore. It's on TikTok, it's on Glassdoor, it's on Indeed, it's everywhere. So get used to it and make it better, please. I said please this time.
You did very polite, Toby. Callie.
The one thing I wanted to bring up that I kept thinking about with this topic was exit interviews, right? Like, that's a great point where HR gets involved. The idea isn't now we figure out how to keep the next person necessarily, right? Because everyone's different. Every situation is different, but it is a valuable point in time to be able to connect with that individual. And you can curb a lot of the stuff that happens after they leave by having a good and empathetic conversation with the person during that time. One of the things that I get really excited to talk about with HR people is, how many times have you gone to an exit interview and you ask them if they would refer someone to come and work here? And they're like, well, yeah, sure, the company, but not my department. I heard that over and over and over again. And it's like, why do you think someone else's department is any different than your own? But if they're saying, oh yeah, go do this here or that here, but don't do what I did, it's still having that same level of impact. So I think we need to figure out, one, how do we actually make those conversations that we directly have control of at that exit point impactful, both for how we shape the future of the organization and how we shape the relationship with that individual, while also keeping in mind this is one person's experience. This is one person's history with this company. And they are going to carry that with them for good or bad. Let's try to do our best to impact that in a positive way.
I also love Tiffany's questions, which is, what do you all think about sending exit interview questions in advance? Callie, whilst I'm with you, let's stay with you for a moment on that. What have you seen work in terms of the exit interviews? Do you get them in advance, or do you give them to them on the day?
I like to kind of get through the questions as quickly as possible and let them talk. I feel like that's where the most value comes in, of like, okay, the organization I'm working for, they're capturing these specific things. That's what they want. Let's get it in a brass tacks sort of way that fits well into my spreadsheet, and then let them get what they need to out of this. And obviously, the size of the company is going to impact that. The ability to have an empathetic and constructive conversation, or even just a confidential conversation, that's going to change too. But I have been very clear that I fill out this information here, but I want to make sure that whatever you think I need to know about your experience here or your departure from here, that you have a chance to talk about that.
Nice. Toby?
Don't do them. Don't do them. What a waste of time. No, I have a real. It's too late by that point. That's my only thing. I'm not saying don't do them, but like by that point, the information you're getting is far too late in the game. You got to go back and investigate. Like, when does that feeling of wanting to leave start, and what is motivating it? If you're doing it at the point of exit, well, that individual has gone way through that thought process. And the thing, this is where organizations get incredibly lazy, especially when it's considering the systems and processes leadership are given to lead a team. I'm not saying the leaders specifically, but exit interviews like, oh, here's an idea of something you can do to help us get some information and insight to make our company better. So the wrong modality delivered at the wrong time, but as a leader, this is what you've got. So do this, please. It's like, well, that's lazy, because a good leader should be having consistent and frequent conversations with their team, knowing how they're feeling, what they're doing, what the vibe is like, what productivity is like. They should know that about their people. It is literally what they are paid to do. But the systems and processes mean that is kind of, again, it ends with trying to achieve that objective about understanding what the user journey is like in an organization. The other one I'll go for is like annual performance reviews. If you have to have a conversation with a member of your team about how their year has been in terms of working with them as in their team, you're not leading properly, because you should already know that before you even have this annual conversation. If you're having to go, oh, what was this like? What was that like? It just means you haven't talked to your people enough. And one feeds the other, right? If you're having those continuous and frequent conversations about performance, but also about likelihood of leaving, and you don't frame it like that. But if you're having open, honest, frequent conversations with your people, you don't need to do any of this stuff. The challenge, however, is how do you capture that data and understand where it sits, with employee life moments, work moments, and all that kind of stuff. That's tricky. But you can, as with exit interviews, you can create a process that leaders will follow, and they'll do it diligently, even if, to your point, Callie, you don't want to do it, you just want to listen. You still do it because you go, well, let's go right through the questions, blah, 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 blah. It's like, you give a leader's process, they'll do it. So redefine it. Like, don't do what's gone before, because that is lazy. And if the past week has taught us anything, people, listening to people like Sherman CIPD won't get you very far in terms of innovating. Bam, 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 bam. Mic drops all over the shop.
Yes, and my whole philosophy around anything employee related is make people feel significant, and they'll surprise you, right?
Yeah.
And I think that this is an opportunity where if you don't say we don't want to have an exit interview, especially if that departure has been handled poorly, now you have someone leaving saying, wow, they don't even want to take the time to understand why I'm leaving. Screw those guys.
Yeah.
It depends on the person, right? Like, some people are going to say too little, too late. Like, I'm done. I don't want to waste my time. And that's great. Let them have that chance. But I feel like having the opportunity to do so is important for that piece of it, because whether it's a year or 3 years or 10 years, having some sort of opportunity to have some sort of closure on what you've experienced during the time with that employer is important. I don't disagree with you one at all. I think we don't get the right kind of information, which is why I say, let me check the boxes and let's talk about whatever you want to talk about. Because I think that the value set is very different in what I think the value is versus what the company is looking for with that sort of interaction. But I think, how ultimately, if I had one thing, and maybe I'm transitioning for us, I don't know. If I had one thing that I wanted people to think about differently with departure, it's how do you lay the foundation for whether that person is disgruntled and that's why they're quitting, or now they're disgruntled because you're treating them poorly because they're leaving. How do you change that? How do you make this a positive thing to say, we gave you something that you can take into that next step of your career, and we're really proud to have had you along with us for whatever amount of time you're here. That's the way that I think we need to be mostly talking to employees about their departure, and we're just not doing it.
I love that. Callie, it sounds like that was a very good wrap up from you.
It was. Sorry, the reason I laughed is someone just sent me a screenshot of my face to my WhatsApp saying, "Hey, you look really tired." This isn't on LinkedIn. This is a personal message as well. So it's a friend as well as an ex-colleague who's...
Me too. I'm also tired.
There's good reason. Patrick, if you're watching, I stayed up and drank a lot to watch what was supposed to be a monumental occasion for our country. He's Irish, so he doesn't care. And it didn't happen. So I'm grumpy and hungover. Just deal with it. This is how I look today.
Oh, dear, dear, dear. Anywho, Toby, how would you like to wrap up? What's your summary of the last 30-minute conversation?
I think we just had some great chat going on with Amy and Tiffany and Dara contributing to the conversation. It's just been absolutely awesome. Like, I think there is... So now I'm just still reading the comments.
Tiffany, honestly, there's plenty more where this comes from, and I'm bringing him to the States in October.
I'm gonna get some sort of eye bag cream, maybe.
If you can either come to Minneapolis, Phoenix, or San Diego to see us, we'd love to see you. Toby will be there in person.
And hopefully in spirit as well, but time will tell. But no, I think look, I think we've got some commonality with everyone in chat. I think that's the thing that what we're talking about is a known truth, and we're all motivated to do things differently, which is absolutely integral. I think the real kicker, and this is with most of the things we talk about, it's like the chat is just going up and it's putting me off. But is to design, like, the operating model of the past will not help us with anything that we've just talked about. So you kind of have to redefine the operating model of your organization. And shout out to Freeformers, because that's who I work for. But we've designed that. But it's like one of many solutions. So I'm never going to profess that it's the one thing that you should be doing. But it's like, just try and reshape it. Don't necessarily work with us and make that happen. But try and reshape how you get things done in your department. And you'll surprise yourself about how you design things differently. So I think take that motivation and bottle it up into that. Then start doing loads of things differently. But you've got to fix the system and process which you operate in first.
I love that. I love that. So get the systems and processes right. We've had Galley's happy Monday. We've had Callie say, lay the foundations, get that bit right. Two really important aspects of this. And again, to Toby's point, we're all saying similar things. The other part of that is reward the employee and your team member on the journey. Don't wait till they say they're going to leave and you can afford to pay them some more. Why haven't you paid them in the beginning? So there's lots of do-betters here. None of this is hard to do, relatively speaking. Really, is it? I don't think so. but there's so much power in letting and encouraging your people to leave powerfully, with confidence and authentically, to stay connected and have great conversations. So thank you for everyone in the chat. Amy, just one last thing before we go. Boston, I don't think we could squeeze another mile in to our agenda, which starts on September 27th from London. And then we come to Minneapolis, and then from there, Phoenix, and then from there, San Diego. However, we will be on the road again, and we will make sure we put Boston on the map for a
Where
next.
everybody knows your name. Bam, bam, bam. Cheers is Boston, right? Please tell me that's the right place.
think
I was
they
also born in
closed,
Boston.
Though, like, rest in peace. I think the Cheers bar finally closed.
What? I
Oh,
was born
don't
in
tell
Boston.
him that, Callie.
Can
was
someone
born in Boston.
confirm? Is that like weird memory?
No, it's open. It's open right now. We can go right now.
Really?
It closes
Okay,
at 9
great.
p.m. I don't know if that's
Okay,
that's
apologies. I don't know what well-known
Well done.
TV monument did close that I
If the Cheers
was
bar
the
suddenly
Cheers
goes
bar.
out of business, it's because of Callie, and this broadcast was like.
Everyone, go to the Cheers bar.
Yeah.
It's a great place. It's so much fun.
Please
Boston.
go. Oh, maybe we should do a club night in Cheers bar.
I'd be up for that. Norm.
If anyone wants the three of us to run one of our podcast sessions and to do the business club from the Cheers bar in Boston, we will make that happen.
Based on this, do we think it's a good idea to let me near alcohol again?
Well, I'm going to encourage it.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I'll deal with the consequences.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. We've clearly been somewhat aggrieved by England's loss and alcohol and everything else that's happening, but we'll get over it, and we'll fight another week next week. In the meantime, have a good one. Keep your suggestions